Hello and good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening. Welcome to the third and final session on the healing power of hydrogen with Tyler LeBaron of the Molecular Hydrogen Foundation. We have already spoken about the origins of the research for the benefits of hydrogen for our health. We've spoken about the differences that there are when it comes to hydrogen in the past two sessions. We're going to talk today, and we should involve you as much as possible through your questions to see, what in particular situations for particular diseases, what we know and what Tyler knows about research that relates to these particular ailments and diseases. So that's of course exciting. We're going to find out what hydrogen actually can do for you in the most practical sense. Before we go there, Tyler will give a brief recap of where we're coming from with the past two sessions, and then it's definitely open to your questions. So when you have those, please email them to courses@theoptimist.com, courses@theoptimist.com. The email address there is Sherry, and Sherry is behind the scenes making sure that everything works smooth and painless. So, and thank you for that, Sherry. With all that, we can start. And just a reminder, the previous sessions you can always watch through the link that you have to the recording, and that will happen with this session too as soon as we're done, which should be in about an hour or so. So please send us your questions, and Tyler, lead us into today's session. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, welcome back everybody for our third and final session of our research and studies on molecular hydrogen. So over the past two courses, we discussed some of the origins and history from the alkaline ionized water concept. We've learned that the Japanese started back in the 1960s and 70s, and it became very popular drinking this alkaline ionized water, but people didn't really understand why it was so therapeutic until the 1990s. Research came out showing that it really was therapeutic, had antioxidant, anti-cancer, anti-diabetic effects, but still the exact reason for why still was not known until about 2007, when it was discovered by an independent group that simple hydrogen gas could have therapeutic effects. And of course, when you do electrolysis of water, like with alkaline water ionizers, one of the products is hydrogen gas. And it was shown over and over again that when you remove the hydrogen gas from alkaline ionized water, the therapeutic benefits are virtually eliminated. And when you add additional hydrogen gas to the water, or just take filtered water and bubble hydrogen gas into the water, those benefits are reinstated. Now, we've discussed some of the origins and history of hydrogen in itself in terms of being involved in the genesis of the universe with the Big Bang, or in the creation, or however, because hydrogen is the simplest molecule. It's literally considered the father of all the elements, because every molecule and every atom consists of protons and electrons, and hydrogen being the very most simple, hydrogen atom contains only one electron and one proton, so the most simple atom there is. Everything consists just of that. And then we further looked at even with the genesis of life, where hydrogen was involved potentially in the creation of life, and with the early hydrogenase enzymes where produce hydrogen gas or metabolize hydrogen gas for energy, and throughout the evolution of life, where we are now. And then the fact that we have developed an awesome, fantastic symbiotic relationship with our gut microflora, our bacteria and our intestines that produce hydrogen gas. So we can see hydrogen gas is very natural, if you will. We've been exposed to it since the dawn of time in the most literal sense. And we also discussed the amazing and interesting, even romantic relationship between hydrogen and oxygen in terms of its balancing each other out with the oxidation and the reduction, where that's what characterizes everything, right, is that two equilibria. And so we've also discussed some of the basic chemistry and biology principles, so we understand what we're talking about when we are talking about hydrogen gas, which is the H2 molecule. We showed you the diagram where molecular hydrogen consists of 2 protons and 2 electrons. They're just bound to each other to make the smallest molecule. They're not bound to anything else. It's not like, with a water molecule, there's hydrogens that are attached to the oxygen, and that makes that hydrogen very, very different than when they're just attached just to each other. And so we went through the 4 different types of hydrogen, which is number 1, the hydrogen gas, the molecular hydrogen, which is what is therapeutic that we're talking about. We talked about the H+, or the proton, which is responsible for making water be acidic or alkaline. The more protons or more H+ ions, the more acidic something is. And we talked about hydride, H-, which is a powerful reducing agent used in industrial organic synthesis for the reduction of ketones and alkenes, alkynes, and other complex molecules that need to be reduced. And so in this one, what we'll do is we'll talk more specifically about the actual benefits of hydrogen and the very many different diseases that hydrogen may be able to help with as well. So now let's go into some of the practical benefits of hydrogen. And to do this, I thought I'd share some of the PowerPoint slide that I actually gave in China a couple of weeks ago at a different medical conference, to explaining some of the potential and power of molecular hydrogen in different disease models and disease states. So maybe we'll just go through some of my PowerPoint slides and briefly talk about them. And my hope is not so much to teach you what diseases specifically hydrogen can help with, because they're so variable, but rather teach you the principles, the basic principles of physiology and biology and different areas in this part, so that you can then take those principles and apply them to whichever disease you would like to see if maybe hydrogen may have a benefit in that. Because by understanding some of the basic principles, you also can help to basically come to your own conclusions of how or if hydrogen will be able to be beneficial or not. So with that, let me go to some of this PowerPoint slide. Let me just share my screen, if it'll let me here. Okay. All right. Well, this is slowly coming up. Yeah, this is at this presentation I gave in China. It was at a medical conference or academic symposium, and a lot of people there. Specifically, it was geared towards the elderly, the people aging society and things, and so most of this is geared towards people helping with the aging and disease. So for some reason my computer is kind of freezing a little bit. Let me just fix that. Okay. Well, let's see. Can you see the screen now?
No.
All right. Let me know when you can see it.
Oh, yeah, now I can see it. Yes. So maybe we can try. Otherwise, I suggest you restart your computer. But okay. So maybe let's continue now, because now we have this on screen.
Okay, great. So let's look at this title. This title, I actually like it, not just because I came up with it, but I think it tells a good story. Hydrogen, an ageless molecule for an aging society, a scientific basis for the amelioration, or improvement basically, of inflammation, oxidation, and cellular degeneration. So the fact is, if we look at our aging society, right now, there's a heart attack about every 34 seconds. And in fact, the World Health Organization reports that diabetes has nearly quadrupled since the 1980s. And all of these things cost really hundreds of billions of US dollars per year. We have aging, we have nutritional problems, we have many environmental factors. All of these are contributing to this aging society. So how do we best combat an aging society? Well, I like to think that we can do it with an ageless molecule, hydrogen. And as we talked about before, hydrogen is an ageless molecule from the origins of the universe, the genesis of life, and the evolution of eukaryotes. And we look at, for example, inflammation. This is very common in both aging and disease, and in fact, it's been coined inflammagene. And this inflammation, you know the feeling. You have the swelling in the morning, or you're difficult getting up, or your knees or your joints hurt. arthritis. All of this is inflammation, which is associated with the aging and diseases. And actually, as we age, we actually get what's called dysregulation of inflammation. It's associated with this dysregulation of pro and anti-inflammatory mediators, which contributes to age-related pathologies and their associated morbidity and mortality. In other words, we have some things that are anti-inflammatory and other things that are pro-inflammatory, and you get a dysregulation. And in fact, with aging, for example, their immune system can become hyperactive. And on the one hand, they're getting inflammation all the time, and it's a chronic, low-grade chronic inflammation, which causes lots of problems. But then when, say, a sickness or something comes around, their immune system doesn't work as well, and you end up getting sick. And so you have basically a disconnect and a dysregulation of the immune system and of the inflammation process. So how do we combat that? Well, hydrogen has been shown to help ameliorate inflammation. And it does so by down-regulating the various pro-inflammatory cytokines, such as interleukin 10, interleukin 4 and 6, all of those, and altering various transcription factors that I have, NFKB, NLRP3, NFAT. All of these are different mediators of inflammation. And that is going to produce benefits. And a number of these studies of hydrogen, both human and animal and others, have shown that hydrogen really can help with things like arthritis, specifically rheumatoid arthritis. In fact, there was a double-blind placebo-controlled trial on rheumatoid arthritis, and it was a crossover design as well. But basically, they found that the drinking of hydrogen-rich water was very effective. And in fact, in some of the patients who had early-stage rheumatoid arthritis, it basically got rid of their symptoms and their markers of the disease to such a degree that they would no longer be diagnosed with the disease anymore. So, some of these is very, very powerful, where hydrogen has been able to show these very good effects. But again, other things like pancreatitis, hepatitis, asthma, colitis, sepsis, and even pain. And many people have experience, with pain specifically, the hydrogen can help reduce the amount of pain that they feel. And then we go to another one, oxidation. We've already talked about how oxidation, which is caused by these free radicals, reactive oxygen species, are a very big part of aging, and they can damage your DNA, your RNA, they cause your death and aging. They're linked to pretty much every disease. Well, the fact is we know, as we talked about before, that we don't want to get rid of all oxidation, right? Just like we talked about with the battery, you need an oxidation, an oxidative side, and a reductive side, a negative and a positive. So we need to have this oxidation. We need to have free radicals. And some of these benefits include things like signal transduction, our immune system, vasodilation, activation of transcription factors. So we need to have oxidation, yes. We just can't have too much of it or too little of it. And if we do, then we get what's called a redox dysregulation. And the fact is that these conventional antioxidants really are not that effective. And in fact, this review article, their summary says that antioxidant supplements do not possess preventive effects and may be harmful with unwanted consequences to our health, because they don't really help with the actual oxidation that is causing the actual diseases. And this is called a redox dysregulation. Just as we talked about with dysregulation of inflammation, you can also have a redox dysregulation. And in fact, in one of these studies, it showed that in the very same cell, not just the same person or the same organ, but the exact same cell, one compartment could be suffering from too much oxidation, and the other part could be suffering from too much reduction. And this is called a redox dysregulation, which conventional antioxidants likely aren't able to help, but it is possible that hydrogen really can help this. And in fact, we see in this table here that hydrogen really can ameliorate some of this oxidation. In fact, if you look at the graph I show on the one side, markers of oxidative stress like malondialdehyde or OHDG, that's a marker of DNA damage. Through a number of reviews, human studies and animal studies, hydrogen administration has been able to decrease these markers, decrease the markers of oxidative stress. And on the other column, we see markers of antioxidant status. such as your superoxide dismutase, glutathione, all of these ones that many people already know about and you're familiar with, hydrogen is actually able to increase or bring back to homeostasis these markers of antioxidant status. Again, thus really ameliorating this redox dysregulation, helping to attenuate the oxidation that is at the etiology, the root of causing various diseases. And then, a number of ways it can do this is, one, we talked about hydrogen basically can scavenge very toxic hydroxyl radicals. And that was the article published in 2007 in Nature Medicine, that hydrogen can selectively reduce cytotoxic oxygen radicals. But remember, it's not going to scavenge all the radicals, because there's good and there's bad. It's only going to scavenge the bad radicals, and that's due to the reactivity of the radicals. The most reactive ones are the ones that are most damaging, and also the ones that can react with hydrogen and be neutralized, and you see the byproduct is simply H2O. It just makes water inside of your body. Another thing is hydrogen can decrease oxidation by upregulating what's called the NRF2 pathway, or activating the NRF2 pathway. And this leads to an increase in your body's own production of superoxide dismutase, glutathione, and catalase, and these other antioxidants that we talked about earlier. Hydrogen alone is able to actually do this to those cells in your body that may be suffering from oxidative damage or oxidative stress. It can go in and increase your body's natural levels of glutathione. And another thing hydrogen can do is actually can prevent reactive oxygen species formation. So actually preventing the free radicals from being formed in the first place. And this is just an illustration or a diagram using what's called the NADPH oxidase system. And on the one side at rest, we're not producing any radicals, but after inflammation or other problems that can get activated, and it takes normal oxygen, O2 gas, and it converts it to O2 minus, which is superoxide anion radical. So that's a radical. Well, hydrogen can actually downregulate this system. It's a cell modulating property of hydrogen. How it does it is not quite understood at this point, but yes, it has been shown that hydrogen can downregulate NADP oxidase system and other systems, and actually lower or prevent free radicals from forming in the first place. And it's better to have prevention than treatment, so to speak. So these are a number of ways that hydrogen is effective and is able to actually combat the oxidative damage in this redox dysregulation. And if we actually straight up compare hydrogen to other antioxidants, we see hydrogen superiority. In fact, here's just one of the examples. This is using a mice model, but they used, with nicotine, like with smoke or other tobacco or things have this nicotine, and that can induce lots of oxidative damage, specifically in the testes. And this graph shows they compared hydrogen, vitamin C, and vitamin E to help prevent this oxidative damage. And if we look at the graphs, we see on the one, T stands for testosterone, and we see CON, that's control. And so it's around just over 2. That's the normal levels of nanograms per milliliter of testosterone that should be in the body. Well, when they give the animals the nicotine, you see the black with no treatment. That's when they got the nicotine, but they didn't get hydrogen or vitamin C or vitamin E or anything, just the nicotine. And you notice that it plummeted the testosterone levels, just drastically reduced it. Well, when they gave hydrogen and the nicotine, well, the hydrogen was able to maintain testosterone levels almost to normal levels. But when they gave the vitamin C or the vitamin E, you can see that it didn't improve. It didn't offer any benefit. Only the hydrogen was able to offer the benefit at maintaining testosterone levels. And the same is true with sperm motility and sperm concentration in the other two graphs. Again, only hydrogen was effective at offering the protective benefit. And there's a number of other studies that show similar results. Now, of course, vitamin C and vitamin E are essential. They're vitamins to the body. We need them. But taking high amounts of them, as the research has shown previously, doesn't really offer additional benefit. In fact, it could offer unwanted consequences to our health. But hydrogen, which is not a vitamin, but does appear to have remarkable therapeutic potential, is effective at helping some of these environmental and internal stresses and toxins to our body. And here's another, the last thing on was cellular degeneration. We talked about inflammation, oxidation, and then cellular degeneration. That is effectively aging and disease. That's when we have apoptosis or premature cell death, protein misfolding, redox dysregulation, inflammation dysregulation. All of those are part of the aging disease. And of course, hydrogen is able to help with each one of those aspects. In fact, hydrogen is able to ameliorate degeneration by effectively benefiting essentially every organ in the human body. Hundreds of the studies are showing, yes, hydrogen benefits the eye, the lungs, the heart, the intestines, the skin, the ear, the brain, all of these. There's many studies showing that hydrogen, yes, does benefit these organs. This next slide here, this is an interesting one because this is showing SIRT1 activity, which is a very powerful anti-aging molecule, basically. And it's decreased drastically by TCDD, which is an environmental toxin, a very common environmental toxin from, say, plastics and different things. And what we see in this first graph in B, well, and also, yeah, in B, we see that the control, the SIRT1 induction activity was all around a 1 the whole time. But then when you give the TCDD in the next graph over, you notice the asterisks are showing that the TCDD, this toxin, drastically reduced the amount of SIRT1 activity, causing the premature aging and diseases. Well, then the other one, you just gave H2. No TCDD, just H2 to the control, and you notice that it didn't decrease it. Maybe it even slightly increased it. For the most part, it kept it the same. But then when you gave TCDD and hydrogen, you'll notice that at the 1, 6, and 24-hour mark, hydrogen remarkably was able to increase the level of SIRT1 activity, this anti-aging protein, basically. And the reason it actually didn't do it at 48 hours because there was in the animal study or cell study that was used in this one is because the hydrogen had dissipated out of it had already left the system, so it was not able to provide the protective benefit any longer. So other studies show that if hydrogen would have remained in there, it would have also continued to offering that same protection, which suggests that it's something, hydrogen is likely something we should be taking on a daily basis. Because
okay. So if I could
sure.
interrupt for a moment, Tyler, I'm wondering, and I suppose more people may have that question. When you go through these studies, the two things come up for me. How are people getting the hydrogen? Is this through water, or is it through dissolved in water, or is it through air, inhaling air? Would you say that makes a difference? Is the one more powerful than the other, or can you say anything about that? And again, there's also something we talked about. What are the amounts people are taking in studies like this, or what are being used?
Those are excellent questions. Let me just go through a couple more slides and I'll answer those, because this is about done anyways, and then I'll jump right into those. This slide again, just showing similar benefits that I talked about. And then lastly, there's an article by Loma Linda University, the review article, that showed hydrogen therapy has potential for the top 8 of the top 10 disease-causing fatalities as listed by the Centers of Disease Control. Whether Alzheimer's disease or diabetes, lung problems, hydrogen is able to help has potential to help with all of these. In fact, as I mentioned, hydrogen has been shown to be therapeutic in over 170 different human and animal disease models, and essentially every organ of the human body. So this is, we have good articles. I'm just gonna, some of this is a little complicated, we don't need to talk about. So we've talked about hydrogen as an ageless molecule that can help combat the age-associated disease of aging, inflammation, oxidation, and cellular degeneration. And so this is kind of my thought with our responsibility. It's unheard of that a molecule can have both a very high safety profile and a very high therapeutic effect. I mean, really, we don't hear things like that very often, if at all. And these two facts make it the responsibility of, one, the biomedical researchers to elucidate the effects of hydrogen, to answer the questions during that you barely asked, it's the responsibility of biomedical researchers to do research and investigations to answer those. And two, it's the responsibility of the public to actively educate and raise the awareness of hydrogen as a medical gas. And I think as we do those things, that's going to bring hydrogen to the forefront and help to really start benefiting a lot of people. So let me take this off screen share and get now to your specific questions. Number one, what are the ways that people are taking hydrogen?
Yeah.
Well, as we talked about, there's a number of ways that people do it. And all of you have been taking hydrogen pretty much from one way or the other by eating a good diet, right? When you have your fibers, that does produce good levels of hydrogen. However, as we talked about in our last conference, that getting hydrogen from the bacteria after you eat fiber is effective, but not always as effective as getting it from other methods, such as from drinking the hydrogen-rich water. That's another method. There's inhalation. In fact, when I was in Shanghai just 2 years ago at one of the medical clinics there, they had an inhalation machine, and you're able to go in and inhale the hydrogen gas for therapy. Kind of like they used to have oxygen bars and different things. Now things are moving towards this idea of hydrogen bars and hydrogen inhalation therapy. In Japan, they also allow for intravenous injection of hydrogen-rich saline. So they'll dissolve hydrogen water, there's hydrogen gas in the saline bags, and then do intravenous injections. They can't do that in China yet because it's not approved by the government at this point. But for the consumer, like most of you listen on this, probably one of the easiest and really one of the most effective ways to get the benefits of hydrogen is to simply drink hydrogen-rich water.
Okay. And will you say that these benefits that we see in the studies are also from just drinking the water?
Most of them are, yes. In fact, because it's the easiest way to get the benefits of hydrogen, most of the studies do that. Most of the studies just do, okay, we're going to give, these 50 people, placebo water, and this 50 people water that has high levels of dissolved hydrogen, for example, and they'll do the study that way.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I was going to ask, from how should I'm trying to figure out, even for myself. So when I will say, it's one thing to say, okay, I'm convinced because all these studies, and I spent some time on the website of the Molecular Hydrogen Foundation. I see all those studies, and we did write articles for the magazine, and so I'm familiar. I'm quite convinced that this is a good thing to do, right? So that's easy. But I can't really say that I now feel, all these benefits that, whatever that should be. And so I'm even asking you, what should or can one experience when you drink the hydrogen water on a regular basis? What should you be looking for?
Yeah, well, it's an excellent question, and something we should discuss, because the fact is, hydrogen is very safe. And if we look at the high safety profile of hydrogen from what we talked about, the deep sea diving at thousands of times higher concentrations, the bacteria, all this stuff, it's very safe. Point with that is, if something is very, very safe, in fact, the safer something is, the less likely it's going to have a magical, punch to it. That's going to act like just this drug, all of a sudden you can walk around and feel no pain or something, right? Yeah. Now, some people, and in some of the studies, some people are very sensitive to the effects of hydrogen, and they take that hydrogen, and they can hardly get out of bed because of so much pain in their back or their knees or swelling or this or that, and they take the hydrogen, and within hours or the next day, they feel tremendous benefits. Not everybody though. And in fact, the people who are already in fairly good health and you're already in homeostasis with your levels, well, what do you want? How do you improve perfect, right? If you're already in normal levels.
I want to be Superman.
Right, yeah. well, and if we look at this too, and this is another example, there are a lot of people in this world that have high glucose levels and high cholesterol levels, higher than they should, and they have no idea. That they feel fine, and they have high blood pressure, high glucose, high, cholesterol, and they feel fine. And everything in their mind is fine. But then let's say they take the hydrogen, and there's studies to show this. They take hydrogen, and all of a sudden their glucose levels go back to normal. Their cholesterol goes lower. Their blood pressure decreases. And guess what? They still feel fine. And then they say, it didn't do anything for me. I feel the same. But if they would have measured their blood parameters, they would have noticed, holy cow, look at this, that, and the other.
But the long-term inflammation markers, for instance, go down.
Yes, exactly. And that one of the articles I talked about with the environmental toxin, the TCDD, causing premature aging and things, very, very common. Well, every day we step out of our house or we wake up out of bed or whatever, we're going to be exposed to toxins, and we don't know if we're going to be exposed to a higher amount than another time. And so it's kind of a nice idea to think you're going to take your hydrogen before you leave or when you wake up or whatever. And then if you do get exposed to some toxin or exhaust or, whatever, you kind of have that protective level or whatever in your body already in case something happens,
Yeah, hydrogen shield. Yeah,
the hydrogen shield.
I see that. So, it is fascinating for all you what you've been sharing and telling me, and even with today's slides. I remember one of the slides. It really goes into almost every disease, right? So, but would you say that it is, from what you've studied and seen all the studies and read and talked to the experts, would you say that it is particularly more effective for, well, whether that is diabetes or cancer or something? Is there anything that sort of jumps out of all the experience that we have?
Well, I guess the things that jump out at me are really probably just the things that already have human studies on it. There may be other diseases that are even more effective, but some of the human studies that I think are pretty powerful are things like the metabolic syndrome, the weight loss, the glucose, lowering the glucose levels, the rheumatoid arthritis, the Parkinson's, and anecdotally, I know some people who've had, have some different diseases. One of them there's no study on, but some of the autoimmune diseases. In fact, one that's common and it's kind of difficult to understand, but Lyme disease. What that really means, but this whole chronic Lyme disease thing is kind of not really accepted by mainstream medicine. But the people who believe in the Lyme disease and use and recommend the hydrogen products, I've heard some of the most amazing things from people and their patients, that hydrogen is very effective for that. But
I was curious to hear about Lyme disease, what you just said, because that, one of those things that there's no answer to at all, it seems, for many people suffering from that. And it's always good to hear that there is something that seems to work. I don't think we have more questions here. I had one more question. So, we were talking about, I think it was Sarah, was that, or Karen was, who was taking baths with hydrogen peroxide. But I also know, and maybe even you have said that, Tyler, that it could be very helpful to take hydrogen, molecular hydrogen, in your bath. Or use it on your skin outside, and that sounds great, but how can you ever get a meaningful density or solution in a bathtub? I mean, how's that going to work? Because that hydrogen flies out, dissipates right away, right?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and actually, it can be done. But it is difficult because when you have a lot of water, so you've got to have a higher concentration of hydrogen, but it is water, and so just as we're drinking the water, like some of the products that you mentioned, you could take a whole bunch of those and open them and pour them out and put them in the bathtub.
So you could possibly empty all those tablets and put them in your bathtub.
Yeah, and that actually is what some people do in Japan. They have that kind of stuff, and they'll put it in the bathtub. But there are other devices, other hydrogen spa type devices that are coming out. Very big in Asia, because Asia is very big into the bathing and different things. And they will infuse the hydrogen in there. and the hydrogen does get absorbed into the skin, through the skin, into the blood system, and you can actually measure increases in breath ppm, so breath hydrogen concentration. So the hydrogen really is, you know, going in there. In fact, when I was in Korea, so it would be in August, the Huffington Post actually did a thing on the conference I was at too. But we went to one of the government-sponsored medical healing centers of hydrogen, and we went to one of the hydrogen spa places, and people with various skin problems or just health conditions or who are healthy but want to experience, go to these healing centers, hydrogen healing spas, and they go and they can inhale the gas, they go drink the hydrogen water, yeah,
but of course, if you would do it like that, you can have just a hydrogen cylinder, you know, under high pressure, and you just lead it through the water. I mean, that's not so easy to do at home, but you could do that
yes, you could, and I've done that before as well. Some of the problems you have to remember is it is explosive, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to have that caution, you know. And so it's
hey, you were just advocating to test that in the kitchen, so that is your high school experience.
Well, that makes for good demonstrations.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So here is
and you know, there's also hydrogen water showers. There's actually a company. I just heard about them. I think they're a pH prescription, you know, out of Florida, but they are making hydrogen water showers. And people go in there and they take the showers for, you know, 10, 20 minutes, and they're working with some diabetes foundation or something like this. And people are coming in there and they're seeing dramatic improvements in their blood glucose levels and in their overall health and different problems just by taking a shower in this hydrogen-rich water shower.
And is that something you can install at home, from what you hear?
That's what I'm under the impression they're trying to come out with. They already have it for, like, they sell it to like medical clinics or things. They're working on coming out with one for just normal home use, just a hydrogen shower, you know. So I see it.
Great.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. So
lots of ways to get hydrogen.
More and more options. Google that, hydrogen showers from Florida.